I think it's important too to think, you get to this point, you're like, I don't even know where to begin. I'm completely overwhelmed. And again, it's kind of like, okay, now I need to take a step back. What are my expectations? What's my bottom line? What do I expect of this kid? Is this too much that I'm expecting? No, you check it out with your friends. But I think it's, you have to go back to, you have values, you have expectations, and you need to hold your kids to that. And their reaction may be, oh, I don't really care about you or anyone else. It's not my problem. Well, you can make it their problem because there's a responsibility that the kid needs to have. And so if that's sort of your expectation, that you would then take responsibility if this were a situation for you, you had that same expectation for your kid and you hold them to it. So it's just something to sort of consider.
And something that we'll get into more later too, and we'll probably come back to you for this example, is they're at different ages. They can be treated differently. They don't all have to get the same thing, and that falls back on your expectations of them as well. What you're expecting from a 13-year-old is not the same as what you're going to expect from a 20-year-old that has an 8-month-old. And it's perfectly okay and expected that you can expect different things from them, and they're going to have to accept that too.
Okay. So the adult spectrum. So try to take inventory, I guess, right now, thinking about your relationship with your teenager. And if you had to qualify the type of relationship that you have with your teen, is it one that's more rigid, authoritarian, it's my way or the highway kind of a deal, or is it more, maybe not, the pushover term is maybe not so kind, but you're the best friend.
Well, but it's an extreme.
Yeah,
it's an extreme.
Excuse me. Sort of, well, you can do whatever you want, you can come and go whenever you want, I trust you fully. So just thinking about that, does anyone here feel like they fall on either extreme? Yeah? Which extreme? Oh, hold on.
Thank you. My husband, I believe, would consider me as the rigid authoritarian, and I consider him the pushover best friend.
So together you're balanced.
No. No, and I'm sure I know. I mean, a lot of the things that I would like to see make him crazy, and a lot of the things that he does or would like to see make me crazy, and I'm sure our son is the one who's crazy. So... but I also remember adolescence as being like 8 years of arguing every single day with my folks. So I'd kind of like to avoid that.
Right. I mean, I think Shilpa was saying how so the combination makes it balanced, which is kind of jokey. But really the goal is for both of you to come to that middle place and be balanced and be unified in sort of how you're dealing with your kid and the decisions that you guys are making. So. And
you are at an advantage in that each of you is at a different extreme, because that means you put the two of you together and you can teach each other how to come closer to that center. Whereas if you were both pushovers or you were both rigid, we have some trouble. So that's good. We've got a lot to work with there. All right. So sometimes as adults, we think we know everything. We've been there. We've done that. Oh, I already experimented with that. Oh, I already tried that. Oh, I had sex before marriage. Don't do it. Oh, I drank and smoked and did drugs. No, don't do it. I know what it does to you.
It's not that big of a deal because I drank and I smoked some weed. But
it's not a big deal for you?
No, I'm just saying, like, you could be a parent and say, well, I did this.
I know,
it's not a problem.
Know. I've been through this. You don't need to go through this. I've done it for you. Trust me, take my word for it. So there's the know everything. Now, go back to when you were an adolescent. How much did you want to strangle your parent when they did that to you? But I want to be me. Now, if we remember, what are adolescents supposed to do? They're supposed to try to figure out who they are. How are they going to figure that out if we're telling them what's right and what's wrong constantly, what they can and can't do? They're not going to figure it out, and you're going to end up with that 30-year-old that's not going anywhere, because they don't know how. Versus the know nothing. You want to take the know nothing?
So, this is kind of when you're in the position of, I have no idea what to do with my kid. I don't know. I have no idea. And not feeling like you're an expert. The kid will look to you for guidance, for modeling. You, the parent who's sort of like, I know nothing, that's not necessarily true. But there's this feeling that I don't know anything, I don't have anything to offer to my kid. And the set of difficulties or problems that are going to arise from a kid seeing that with a parent, you can imagine what they might be. So there's that opposite extreme. I don't know if you want to add anything.
Just the one main takeaway, if you take nothing else away from this evening, take away that you did it and you survived. You were an adolescent, and here you are, a full-grown adult. You did it. You know how to do it. You know a lot. You don't know nothing. Just always remember that.
And you don't know everything. I mean, this is why we're all here
please
tonight.
Remember that too. Yes.
I'm saying, if I may just interject
Sure.
into that, is I think as all adults and having passed through adolescence, and even though, yeah, we've been there, we know that, and like you're saying, to take away that, we've passed through it, sometimes as a person, you may not be happy with what you've become.
Yes.
And because of that, you don't want your child or children to, follow that path, like to break that cycle, that vicious cycle, I call it.
Right.
So, at least for me, I don't have a teenager as yet, but she's getting there. Actually, I'm like, maybe the next lecture I should really be here, but but I want to be before her because, and I think everyone can agree with me, in our times we did not have technology as it is today. And I find that I have to always be ahead of her because then you always try to sneak something inside there that your parents are not going to know, but at the same time, I don't want to be completely clueless to what she's doing. And then when it comes to the monster that it may become, hopefully not, oh, if I had known. So as much as, yeah, we've passed through it and we've been there and we know and may not know, there are times when, in certain areas we don't want them to follow that suit. So how can what would be your advice to us to dealing with those intricate parts?
Well, right there, you're a great example, thank you, of hovering right around the middle there. Because on the one hand, you're admitting to yourself and you're admitting to everyone here, you don't know everything. That's great. You don't. And you do know, though, the way you went through it. And what you also know is that you don't necessarily want your teen to go through it that way. That's huge. That's knowing a lot. Because you're sitting here and your kid's not even a teen yet, right? You're ahead of the curve. You're looking for different ways. You're looking for different perspectives. And that's what you can do. You're not going to find a perfect way because your kid's going to become a teen and then is going to become an adult and is going to have kids and is going to say, well, yeah, I did it this way, but I want to try to do it a little differently for my kid. That's great. That's about the most you can expect and hope for. So you're on the right track. Keep asking, keep looking. Depending on the topic, as you said too, you're going to be at different places on these spectrums. So maybe with technology, you know less, but you don't know nothing, and you can find out, right? And some of what we want to get across is a lot of this is going to happen with your teen. This is not going to happen in isolation. You don't go to parent camp and become this expert on teens. You're going to do it through your teen. Your teen is going to teach you a lot about what they know and what they're learning, and their questions are going to teach you a lot about what they're struggling with. And for the most part, you're their parent. You're going to teach them more than anybody. They know that as well. Oh, they do. She knows that, and she believes that, and her job is to not let you know that. So she's doing well.
But I think it's also important to let your teen know that you don't know everything.
Yes.
And that this is part of the process, and we will figure it out. We just need to give each other enough sort of respect and attention to know that you will get through this. You will figure it out. You may not have all the answers. That's only human. I mean, that's what's expected. And if you're, fairly intelligent, which I think you are, you're probably also pretty resourceful. So you will get the answers, and whether that means coming to things like this, events like this, or talking with friends, colleagues, you'll find the answers, and you'll work your way through it. So that's just, I think that's kind of also a really important takeaway message, is that you will figure this out. As difficult and as challenging and as stressful as it will be, you will survive it, just like you survived your own teenage years. You will survive your kids' teenage years. You'll just figure it out. Okay, so this is a good one in the sense of how you foster this relationship with your teenager. You want to be, there's these two extremes where you have, well, let's go to the MoMA and this is really amazing exhibit. That's really what I'm interested in doing on a Saturday morning. And your teenager who just came home from a party is a little hungover, probably doesn't want to go to the museum, and that may not be what's interesting to them. What might be interesting to them is going to the diner, having breakfast with you, and talking about what they did the night before. So sort of knowing in your mind that these are my interests. I don't know if they're my kids' interests. Let me check with them. Let me figure it out.
On the other hand, how many of you've seen Mean Girls? Do you remember the mom who comes in with those drinks after school? That would be the one that's at my teen's life. So here's the mom who's got the perky little breasts, just like her teenage daughter, and she's got the pink sweatsuit that is skin tight, that's got the glitter all over it, and she's making cocktails for her daughter and her friends for after school, and wants to hang out with them and is desperately trying to be their best friend. This poor woman needs something else. She needs something in her life. She's completely absorbed into her kid's life and has lost her own identity. This is not a daughter that's going to know how to develop her own sense of self. So we don't want to be at that extreme either. That's not really joining with your kid or being interested in their life. That's just kind of taking what they do and making your own life out of it.
Sure. We have some good tips, I think, rules to abide by, which is be interested, being interested in your kid's life and trying to understand where they're coming from and what they're doing. Communicate. Communication is huge. I mean, I don't think we can stress it enough how important communication is. Do you want to take the last three?
Yeah. Don't assume you know what they're going through, what they mean when they slam the door in your face. Don't assume they're angry at you. They may not be. They may actually be very stressed out about something that happened at school, or they may be really upset that their friend didn't call them, but they called someone else. Just don't assume. And that's where you'll go back to the communication. You want to communicate to figure out what it is that's going on. Be real.
Okay.
That's a tough one to do. What we mean by that is don't get caught up in being the adult that needs to know everything, or that needs to have all the answers, or that needs to not be playful in the way that your teen may be. You can be playful. She may say something, or he may say something that really cracks you up, and it's kind of inappropriate, but so what? You still think it's funny. You can laugh at that. That's okay. You don't have to be the perfect adult that knows everything and can control themselves and contain themselves. Just be yourself. If you're upset about something, let them know that too. Don't try to hide it. They can tell. Teens have a way of zeroing in on the exact thing that you don't want them to know. So you may as well just put it out there. They'll find it anyway. And if you don't tell them it's there, they're not going to trust you. So if you want them to trust you and believe what you say, be real. And the last one.
The last one I think is really, really important, is having expectations of your teen. Not expectations that are too high or too low, but having realistic expectations. How do you, expect your kid to be in a social situation? How do you expect your kid to be as a student in high school? And having expectations sort of sets them up to meet a standard that you think is important, that gives them something to work towards. And I think it helps really contain the kids so that they feel like, they're within a frame, and it helps them sort of make choices along the way that'll help promote them in their development.